Hi there, Wolt Chums. It's Catherine, and before we get started with this episode, I wanted to let you know that we will be discussing casual alcohol consumption as it relates to your health and fitness journeys. If you feel that you have a more serious issue with alcohol consumption, please connect with a health professional to get more support. And now on with the show. And welcome to another calorically promiscuous episode of We Only Look Thin. I am Catherine Weigel. I am one of your hosts. I am a Tiny Habit certified coach.
Yeah.
I have lost about 135 pounds.
Wow.
And with me today is
Donald Weigel, and I have lost about 100 pounds. And I am the Ed McMahon to Catherine's Johnny Carson, to use a very modern and hip reference.
Yeah, we love modern and hip references. Could I say that you're my drinking buddy?
Oh, that's not good.
Okay. But you know how we use modern references all the time?
I mean,
basically are at the...
We're based, yeah.
Like the tech industry version of weight loss.
Yeah, we're constantly referencing things from the now. We're on the bleeding edge, you might say.
Yeah, we're just like the
we're
future is
hip
happening.
And we are calling this episode Save Your Beers for Another Day. We are about to talk about alcohol consumption as it relates to your health and fitness. And we have named this song after a 2021 hit by The Weeknd.
Which is when a lot of drinking happens. I think this song was meant to be. Most references that we come up with come up because I drive our daughter a long distance to school.
Yeah.
And we have Sirius XM radio. Sirius XM, please support our podcast.
Yes, we're very serious.
But we'll listen to the 80s channel and the 90s channel. But also, there's a TikToks channel, and they play The Weeknd and the Save Your Tears for Another Day. And I get so tired of all the music. But if I can make them into podcast episodes, I feel like that drive is not wasted. And so here we are.
Well, it's funny that you bring that up because, we're naming this episode after a modern 2021 song, but normally all of our references are about like 40 to 100 years old.
Yeah.
sometimes
from
older.
The 1900s.
Didn't we talk about like Calvin Coolidge in a couple of episodes? And we've talked about doing it like Chopin and hundreds of years old. So here are some alternate suggestions.
Oh, this is new.
He's
springing it on me.
We could have called this Beers of a Clown.
Okay.
We could have called this The Tracks of My Beers.
That's funny.
We could have called it Beers for Fears.
Oh, I like it.
We could have called it Driven to Beers, which is the Police song, Driven to Tears.
Okay.
And we could have gone back to the Rolling Stones and called it As Beers Go By.
Wow. Yeah. But we're going to be talking about your cocktails.
Yeah.
And your beers and wines, many spirits we'll be talking about today.
And look, we would like to...
That was funny. I didn't know you were going to talk about it. But now I'm like, all I'm doing is trying to think of other tier songs.
Tier songs, exactly. Before we really get into this, we would like to say, if you think you have an actual like alcohol issue, an actual like problem, you like say things twice to make it real. This is not the episode for you. This is about drinking alcohol as it relates to calories and achieving your health and fitness goals. This is not about having a serious alcohol issue. And if you have one, please reach out and get professional help. Don't listen to our yuck podcast and try and fix yourself based on that. This is about your calorie consumption in relationship to that.
Yeah. So thank you for that, Donald. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Why is it so hard for me to be serious?
I don't know.
So So two reasons three reasons, maybe at least 4 reasons we're talking about this.
Whoa, there are more reasons
so
than even we realize.
The first reason is save your tears for another day.
Yeah.
The second reason is an article that I found in Health Magazine about drinking and the pandemic. Do you remember
And when
that?
she says Health Magazine, she actually means a magazine printed on paper.
On papier.
Like, when I say magazine these days, usually I mean an internet, like, website magazine.
But a
it's
magazine
an actual,
magazine.
like, magazine. That's right.
Yeah.
Problem, magazine.
Exactly. But also, speaking of problems and things,
Yeah.
Casual drinking has gotten in the way of my health goals many, many times.
Yeah.
And so that was one time. And then I thought I was fine with it. But then it's come up again. So that's 4 times, 4 reasons we're recording this is because it used to be an issue for me. And now over the summer, it has been an issue for me
The
again.
once and future issue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, commercials that you see in things like magazines and on television, they show the summertime is for Michelob and the summer is for fun and beverages with friends. And I let alcohol take over a little bit this summer. And guess what? I'm up on the scale.
Yeah. And look, we talk about all the time about not ruling things completely out of your diet. And I think that generally is a good idea. And, unless you're somebody who just can't moderate, but alcohol itself is pretty high in calories. And it also is usually, served with mixers, which also are pretty high in calories. And then on top of that, like, it's not very satisfying when it comes to, satisfying your hunger, in other words. And I say all the time that I prefer not to drink my calories, even though I love sugary sodas and things like that. I much prefer to eat my calories, which keep me full and satisfied throughout the day, rather than drink them.
So whereas Donald prefers to eat his snacks, and as the episode was called, or I said at the beginning, it is not for me the calories I consume from alcohol, because I do enjoy non-mixered drinks. Is that a word? I don't even know.
Yes. Non-mixered.
Non-mixered.
Yes.
Oh my gosh. But it does make me calorically promiscuous, and I know it. If I have a drink on an empty stomach, I'm just kidding. It's just 150 calories. I can spare that. I can fit it into my budget, but it reduces my inhibitions, and those inhibitions or my inhibitions are
inhibitions and inhibitions. Yes,
are generally related to saying, you know what, I'll worry about calories tomorrow. And then I go and I eat more snacks. So whether you're out with others, at a festive event, or at home alone, for me, it's not necessarily the caloric impact of the alcohol. It's what it incites me to put in my mouth afterward.
Yeah, which is eating, and eating a lot of things. And I know that when I have if I have a couple of drinks, then suddenly I'm like, oh, you know what would sound good right now would be all the food.
Yeah. Why don't we just get another appetizer for
it.
the table?
Yeah. And another thing that happens all the time with drinking on I was going to say on a weeknight, but even on the weekend, having a few drinks, it makes me, want to stay up too late. And, I'm like, just one more, or I'll just hang out for a little longer. And then it will derail me for the next day too. Like, any plans I had of getting up the next day and exercising or whatever, like they, tend to go out the window when I've decided to, indulge in some alcohol the night before.
Yeah. And so one of the things that we actually did an episode early in the podcast called It's 5 O'Clock Somewhere,
yeah,
where we brought up very similar issues, but now we have more experience and wisdom to share with you about it. Because again, we're talking about creating a sustainable lifestyle. And for some, that means complete abstinence. We do have some people in Wolt Place who have given up alcohol completely and just said that they don't miss it and their lives are better with it. But for those of us kind of in the middle area, the article that I saw talked about the gray area of drinking, where maybe it's starting to impact your life just in ways like eating more or skipping workouts or sleeping in and not achieving the goals you want to achieve, that's kind of what we're talking about today, is that how are you able to work alcohol into your life without it taking over your habits?
And just on a little side note, I know that if I have one drink, it doesn't really affect me much. But if I have two or three, it can really disrupt my sleep too, just in general. Like I will have restless sleep. I'll have weird dreams and stuff. And it really, impedes me getting a good night's sleep to be fresh for the next day.
Yeah, for sure. So the article from Health Magazine talked about, and this is an actual statistic. You love numbers, Donald. So here we go.
We all love numbers. Everybody's into numbers and math. If there's one thing I've learned about people, it's that they love numbers and math.
Okay. So Nielsen with a capital N. I guess all Nielsens are capital N's, but not Liam Neeson. No, that's Neeson. Liam Nielsen.
Liam Nelson. Nelson Nielsen.
Yeah, who came up with ratings for TV shows back in the day.
Yeah.
I'm great at this. I'm basically Barbara Walters. Nielsen reported a 54%.
Another timely Barbara Walters reference, by the way.
Nielsen reported a 54% increase in the U.S. sale of alcohol for the week ending March 21st, 2020. Anybody remember what happened that week, everybody?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. The world shut down because of COVID. But online sales of alcohol actually went up by something like 240% also that week, because people were, aside from toilet paper, people were stocking up on alcohol.
Yeah. And dumbbells also, by the way, were impossible to find right then for some reason.
Yeah, that's the trifecta. But in this episode, we want to talk again about our ability to work alcohol into our lives in a way that doesn't sabotage our efforts. And we will start again with additional numbers. Donald, off the top of your head, do you remember how many days there are in the week?
Off the top of my head, it's something like 7.
7?
Yeah.
Do you actually, we talked about this the other day. Do you think the week starts on a Sunday or a Monday?
I think the week starts on Monday.
I do too.
I think it ends on Sunday.
I think so too.
Yeah.
But here's the thing.
A lot of like calendars though start on Sunday, which is weird.
So do you happen to also remember the percentage of the week that each day is?
I do. Oh man,
I do.
You caught me off guard. Is it like 17?
No, it's 14.28%.
Okay.
So we'll start again with the weekend, which he spells it differently. The guy in the music videos.
Yeah.
He spells it, he forgets an E, like he can't afford it.
I actually really liked his Super Bowl halftime show. I know a lot of people didn't, but
I liked
it.
It was intense. It was definitely a different experience.
I enjoyed it.
But I actually like him. Anyway, so a lot of times, what happens on Fridays? Friday, it's the weekend.
Friday.
A Friday.
Yeah.
That's how they say it in New Jersey.
Yeah,
Weren't we just talking about being Pride?
Yeah, they do. Monday, Tuesday,
Wednesday.
Yeah, they don't say day at the end, yeah.
But if each day of the week represents 14.28% of the week, if you start celebrating, cracking some brews, do people crack brews?
They sure do.
If you start drinking on Friday and then Saturday and Sunday, suddenly you are at 43% of your week that you're potentially sabotaging with caloric promiscuity from eating too much and drinking too much.
Exactly.
And if you're like me from 6 years ago, I would also have a glass of wine every night when I got home from work to unwind, and then uncap the hummus container and eat 1,500 calories worth of hummus and crackers every night, because hummus is a superfood.
Yeah, and we talked about on the last episode developing your identity as a healthy, fit person, and I had developed this identity of being, that adults drunk wine, and that they did it routinely at night, and that adults were members of wine clubs and had bottles of wine come. And well, when you open a bottle of wine, you've got to drink the whole thing. You can't, let it sit there, and you can't let it go bad. That contributed greatly to my type 2 diabetes, and being diagnosed with that, and then sort of for me starting the ball rolling on this whole thing. But it is difficult sometimes to get rid of those notions of, well, this is what adults do. Adults have a couple of drinks with dinner every night, or it's not dinner without a couple of drinks every night, or it's not dinner without a glass of wine, or boy,
it's not brunch without
each workday.
mimosas.
I have to have this to unwind, or I really deserve this at the end of the day. It's really hard to give up those notions. But in the long run, if you develop the notion that you are in charge of your health and fitness goals, it can serve you much better.
Yeah, and we do know people who are able to work in a beverage every evening and not have it sabotage their efforts. Like, again, we're not medical professionals. We're not talking about serious drinking issues, but people who are like, oh, I just have one and it's fine, or I have a White Claw and it's not a big deal.
Right.
But for me, I definitely used it as a loophole of I get to stop taking responsibility for myself when I have a cocktail, because I know that if I, just cross a certain threshold, I'm going to go and snack about it. And I think too, as, the world has opened up in 2022, we've had more opportunities to go out and see people, and we've, had family come to visit. And a lot of that revolves around an evening drink or let's meet at a thing for whatever. And for you, Donald Weigel. Donald Weigel.
Yes, me.
Football season is coming.
Yeah.
And Sundays are beer days. And you sit on the couch and you enjoy, or you go to a football place and watch things and...
Yes, go to a football place. Yeah, by the time this episode is posted, we will be into the real NFL season, and yeah, it can be difficult to disassociate like your poker night or a sporting event from having to have alcohol when you do it.
Yeah. So for those of you working on integrating alcohol into your life, we can go back to Gretchen Rubin, friend of the show.
Yes.
And use some of her methods to really come up with ways to be the champions of our choices instead of the continuous victim of our choices. And one of her big I don't know, deals. That's not a thing. That's not a unit of measurement.
Yeah, Gretchen Rubin's deal is
having policies around when you consume certain types of food or drink. And for me, for a long time, I had my identity or my policy was I only drink alcohol on the weekends in the evening. So that would be 2 nights a week, a Friday night and a Saturday night. And for a long time, like through the pandemic, I had a really good habit of just like, okay, Friday night is beverage night, Saturday night, and that's it.
Yeah. And it was one beverage.
Yeah. But then after that, and when Donald was first diagnosed with diabetes, we didn't drink for a whole year.
Yeah, I didn't have any alcohol for at least a year.
Yeah. But in this last summer, I've talked about it being kind of stressful and overwhelming and not really going the way I'd hoped it would. And it was time to unwind also. And I kind of let go of my policy. Well, I didn't kind of. I just let go of my policy. And it was suddenly a Monday night, and wouldn't it be nice? It's hot out. It's 95 degrees outside. Why don't I have one cocktail?
Yeah.
And then the next night, why don't I have one cocktail, but I'll add a little bit more spirits to that? And why don't I? And why don't I? And guess what? I am up on the scale as of right now. And it's not because of the alcohol. It's because of the caloric promiscuity that came after the drink. So seeing the impact on the scale and the results of my poor choices gives me the opportunity to reassess and reestablish some of those policies. And for you out there, what you might want to do is really think about how much alcohol you're consuming. When are you consuming it? Is it by yourself? Is it with other people? How does it fit into your week? And how could you scale it back? We're not talking about, okay, that's it. I'm going dry for a month and then I'll go back to my normal habits.
Yeah.
But how could you dial it back if you are drinking, starting in the morning on a Saturday all the way through Sunday with activities with friends? What policy could you put in place that wouldn't feel like punishment, but actually like, it's in my best interest if I don't drink before 4 p.m. It doesn't have to be all or nothing. You can just set a policy in place as sort of a safety guard against sabotaging your own efforts.
Yeah, and you can do something that feels right for you, and you don't have to be married to it forever. You can adjust as time goes on. And, for example, Catherine's policy of a drink just on weekend nights. So one drink on a Friday, one drink on a Saturday. Like I really like that for myself, but maybe for you, it might be once every other week. Maybe you do it even less often, like every time you get your oil changed, or every time you go to a dentist, or every time you get your hair cut. Like that is your one drink, occasion.
Yeah. We actually have someone in Molt who was talking about how she no longer drinks at home casually. If she goes out with friends to a brewery or something, she will have a cocktail or a drink, but she doesn't have it at home. And that just adds a safety guard for those nights where you come home and you just, wouldn't it be fun to just unwind and have a drink? So policies can come in different forms. Either it can be contextual, like who you're with, when or where you drink can also be an issue. Maybe it's a policy of I do not drink by myself. If that's your issue. For others, it might be more difficult when you are with other people. Another policy you could put in place is I do not drink on an empty stomach.
Yeah.
I know that if I haven't eaten anything that I will feel a buzz more quickly. So you might have a policy of not drinking unless you're also eating something, because if I drink on an empty stomach, it goes to my head much more quickly. So you could just have a policy of eating and drinking at the same time.
Yeah, and look, for me, the once a week or the twice a week, the Friday night, Saturday night, really gives me something to look forward to. It becomes a nice treat. And I know we talk about the hedonic treadmill all the time. And it may sound odd, but when I was drinking like most nights of the week, even if it was just one or two glasses, I found that I didn't enjoy it as much. But if I save it for that once a week, it actually is more special and becomes more of a treat than it would if I was doing it more routinely.
Yeah, and honestly, this summer I found that we had people visiting, and I would sit out on our lanai, our veranda, whatever you want to call it,
yeah,
with a beverage. I didn't have anywhere to drive. We were just at home. Why not just have a beverage on a summer night? But then again, realizing that it was sabotaging my efforts, taking it apart and deciding what was actually fun about it or what mattered about it. I have this cool tiki glass that we got at Star Wars Land at Disneyland.
Galaxy's Edge.
With Ewoks on it.
Yeah.
Which I know I'm very mature. But I was having a frosty beverage in that. And then I realized what I enjoy is sitting outside on the veranda with my Ewok tiki mug. So I have switched from alcohol to having a Frosty Fresca, which is an actual real drink. It's not made up. No, someone in Walt asked because they weren't from the U.S. and they didn't have Fresca.
Yeah.
But what I actually enjoy is getting out of the house and relaxing. So when Donald has been getting home, instead of going for a drink, I grab a Fresca, I grab my Ewok mug because I'm a grown-up, and we go and sit outside for a little while and chat without alcohol. And guess what? We still like each other.
Yeah, we still do after all these years. And I think that's a great tip. Like, even if it's not the alcoholic beverage of your choice, if you once in a while like mix it up with something sparkling, like something bubbly or something festive that you wouldn't normally drink, that could be a nice treat as well. I think too, the really important point here is to make sure that the calories really fit into whatever your plan is. Make sure that the beverage fits in, because I think a lot of times we think about alcohol as being extra, or that
it's just liquid.
It doesn't count. Yeah. It's like, I'm going to eat all the calories I'm going to eat, and then I'm going to have the drink, and I'm not even going to track it.
Yeah. And I mean, and we've shown lots of slides in Molt Place of I'm doing everything right. Well, but I'm not tracking on weekends and I'm not really factoring that in. And you think you're eating at a deficit because 5 days I ate at a deficit. Why am I not losing weight? Oh, because I ate twice as many calories on Saturdays and Sundays because I was drinking and going out to bars or whatever. So it sabotages your efforts week after week. And it can be hard too when you have friends who prompt that kind of behavior. I know the more we have gone out with people and the more interaction we've had, the harder it is to put those boundaries in place.
Yeah. And look, I wanted to, I'm not going to read like every sort of calorie friendly drink in the world, but I put together a nice list of some things that are pretty calorie friendly that you can fit into your plan. a 12 ounces of a regular beer, and we're not talking like a very high alcohol count beer, but a regular beer is about 153 calories. An ounce and a half of gin, whiskey, vodka, tequila, rum is about 100 calories before you put a mixer in it. So if you add, if you like those things straight, great. If you add a very low calorie mixer or a diet mixer, you can get a lot of bang for your buck that way. 5 ounces of red wine, about 125 calories. 5 ounces of white wine, about the same. 4 ounces of champagne, 84 calories. 4 ounce margarita, which I know that's really small, but 170 calories. A 3.5 ounce whiskey sour, 160 calories. And then Catherine mentioned earlier the hard seltzers, like a White Claw or whatever. Like those are only about 100 calories. And, I hate to admit it. It doesn't seem like a grown-up drink, but I enjoy them. I think they're good.
I think it is exclusively a grown-up drink.
Oh, yeah, okay.
But also it gets to that, what if you do have trouble because you are a social person? We're both introverts, so it's easier for us.
Yeah, it might be easier for us.
But one of the things that we find too is changing up social situations to not be focused on alcohol and evenings. So, for example, if you have a bunch of friends that always get together on an evening for a happy hour or game night with alcohol, what about trying to switch it up every once in a while, even every third hangout? Do a morning hike instead of...
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah.
I have a few friends. I'm trying to imagine talking them into a morning hike, but it would be fun. It would be good for me.
Yeah, but also you could switch up the event to be more of like, hey, and this wouldn't be a bro thing, maybe with your bros.
Hey, you don't know what bros do.
I pretty much know what your bros do.
Oh, you do? Okay, all right.
But maybe it is more of a daytime. Like when you go to conventions and stuff, you're not drinking while you're walking the floors of the convention.
It's true, but we're thinking about it later.
Thinking about drinking.
Yeah, no, not really.
But perhaps take a cooking class with friends or have a morning book club, at a restaurant where you're not going to drink because you're driving. You can switch things up, and it doesn't have to be, a line in the sand. That's it, everybody. We're not drinking anymore. But sometimes too, we outgrow friendships that don't really meet our health needs.
And I used to have this thought, and look, it still occurs to me all the time. When there's a get together, one of the first things I think of, if not the first thing, is, okay, how do we get food involved in this? What will the food be? And how do I use this gathering as an excuse to eat all the food or drink all the drinks? And it's that mindset of remembering that it's really about the friendship and the good times and not making the alcohol or the food the center of the get together.
Yeah. And I mean, you could do a coffee date, make it a morning hangout instead of an evening hangout. Do a 5K, take a class. I literally wrote something and I have no idea what it is. I don't even want to spell it. Pogattee. I have no idea. Patagata. I have no idea what that is, but I
can't help you here.
Sometimes I'm writing, I'm like, I'll remember what that is, and it didn't work out. But what could you change up in your friendship circle so that it wasn't all alcohol based? Because it really does bring us down. And one person in Wolt actually was talking about how she was in a running group, and at the end of the run, they would all go to a bar and drink, or that was kind of the vibe of the event.
Yeah.
And she told me about, and this article also talks about finding sober activity groups. Apparently, that is a thing. She said she found another running group that was specifically a sober running group that met for coffee afterward, which again can change the vibe. You become like the people that you spend time with. There also, from this article that I saw in Health Magazine, there's a group for middle-aged moms. Why are you pointing fingers at me?
Where does this group meet?
On the interweb.
Interesting. On the internet.
Yeah, but there's a website called drytogether.org, D-R-Y together.org. But it's a social interaction group for women that has a book club and speakers and that kind of thing, but it's not alcohol related. There are so many vessels of beverage at Home Goods that are like, I'm here for the booze. And like, if it's booze, it's my booty, whatever. And that's funny, ha ha ha, but there is a culture.
Home is where the wine is.
Yeah, exactly. But there's this culture of let's drink about it. And that can be really tough when you have health issues. There are people who can have a beverage and walk away and not be snacky about it, but that's not me. And so being around people who have a similar purpose and a similar tolerance can help you achieve your goals. But conversely, they can also sabotage if they're leading you down a path of drinking more than you're comfortable with.
Yeah, absolutely.
And a few things around boundaries. The article also says that alcohol change is a challenge on its own, but especially around other people. So setting boundaries, I know it's hard, but you don't have to justify not drinking. If you're the kind of person who can just say, nope, I'm not drinking right now, it doesn't make me feel good, like I feel like crud the next morning, you can just keep it to a short answer.
And you don't have to announce it. Like, you don't have to make it a big deal. Like, oh, I'm not drinking right now, because it invites questions and peer pressure and all of that. Like, just get something to drink, and you don't have to say anything or draw attention to it.
Yeah. So you can say, no, thanks, I'm driving, and just leave it at that. And another option is to build a strong support team. Not everyone is going to support your health goals, whether it's alcohol related or food related. Not everyone is going to be on your side. So reach out for those friendships that support your endeavors.
Absolutely.
And another thing to consider is that the people who aren't supporting you are just people who might not want to change themselves, and they feel threatened by your changing. Oh, but we used to go drinking in college. Oh, we used to go, do this. That was so fun. They might feel threatened by the change. So figure out other ways to spend time with people that is not necessarily alcohol related.
Absolutely. That's a great idea.
So the biggest part of this, and I think this is kind of where I fell flat before, is that I saw not drinking or not eating what I wanted to as a penalty for bad behavior. So we talk a lot about identity in what place, we only look thin place. And I think we did an episode about what to say when you talk to yourself.
Yeah, we've done a few.
Words really matter. So when we use the word can't, oh, I can't drink. Oh, I can't because I'm on a diet. Oh, I can't whatever. We take a stance of a victim. So if we say to ourselves, I can't drink alcohol on weeknights, like Catherine Donald said I shouldn't, so like I'm not going to.
And you say it in that voice too.
But what you're thinking or what you're picking up on is, why does everyone else get to unwind and enjoy life except me? This isn't fair. I'm on a plan. Blah. And it feels like a punishment.
Yeah.
But when we look at our identity and think about the why it matters, like why do you feel better when you don't drink? When we think about the identity reframe of I don't drink on weekdays, we get to, really consider why this matters to our identity. So it could be, I don't drink alcohol on weeknights because it often leads to poor sleep, makes me feel sluggish, and I end up overeating.
Yep.
Which leads me to skip my planned yoga practice in the morning. I don't make breakfast for myself. I end up getting a takeout lunch, and then I sabotage the whole next day. I'm not saying you're going to say that all at once, but it's like when you see the ripple.
That's the mantra you need to say every time.
But when you go, this is why I don't do it, because I feel sluggish and tired, and it affects my medication, and I sleep in late, and I don't go to my yoga class. It just, it's not just the alcohol calories that matter. It's the lifestyle that it supports. So the reframe for only drinking on the weekends is, I'll save a glass of wine for Friday night when I know I can sleep in on Saturday and still get in my yoga practice later in the morning, and I'm not so time constricted. So balancing it to, this is why I do it, and this is how it fits into my life, and that's why I feel good. I mean, it's not like you would say, like, oh man, I can't drink at work. Like, that's bull.
Exactly.
Nobody would say that. It's just not done. It's not, you don't even need a policy to not drink at work, because it's just expected that you don't drink at work.
Yeah.
And that's okay. But just having policies on weeknights of, you know what? I don't drink on weekdays. I just don't do it. I don't go to concerts on weekdays. I don't plan multiple nights of activity because I'm an introvert and I need time to refuel myself. It's not a penalty. It's designing your life to support what you know makes you feel your best. We have an opportunity to control our choices and to really observe our habits and how they're serving us. And I can tell you, even after these years of maintenance, I gained 10 pounds this summer from letting go of my policies and not prioritizing them. And it feels really good to be in the month of September with my habits and my policies back in place, because it gives me control over my choices. And instead of feeling like a victim to circumstance, the policies just help me keep my choices in order. I don't have to have willpower or grit or white knuckle, because my policy just says that's not what I do, because it doesn't make me feel good. And it really helps streamline and make it easier to do the things that you say you want, which is to lead a healthy and happy lifestyle.
Very well said. And thank all of you for taking control of your choice to listen to this podcast. We are grateful for each and every one of you. And thank you for listening. All of our episodes are available wherever you found this one, and also on our website anytime at weonlylookthin.com.
Yep, and if you are at weonlylookthin.com, you can click the link on Join Our Support Group to find out more about Wolt Place. We Only Look Thin Place. It's a weight loss support and accountability group based on Facebook for women. It is not a weight loss plan. We've got people doing intermittent fasting, keto, calorie counting, Weight Watchers, but we are a place for support and accountability and fellowship, because this goes so far beyond a plan and into who we are cultivating as people. So it's a great place for support. We have 2 subscription options, a monthly subscription with a 3-day complimentary trial and a 3-month subscription with a 7-day complimentary trial to see if Wolt Place is right for you.
I didn't want to interrupt you, but I was imagining like the person in Wolt Place who does each of those things in rotation. Like on Monday, they're on Weight Watchers. Tuesday, they're keto. Wednesday, yeah. Anyway, I don't know. I thought
Friday,
it was funny.
I'm in Wolt.
Exactly.
See?
You can also interact with us on social media at We Only Look Thin on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. Or you can send us an email. We would like to hear from you. If you have any suggestions on how you handle alcohol with your health and fitness program, we would like to hear from you. We would also like episode suggestions. Compliments are always good. And you can send questions to weonlylookthin@gmail.com.
Yep, and if you have a couple of extra minutes and are feeling generous, can you head over to Apple Podcast and leave us a rating and a review? Not only does it make us feel good and know that what we're doing actually matters, and we're like 4.5 years into this, almost 5, makes us know that what we're doing matters, but it also boosts our ratings in the Apple algorithms and helps other people find our podcast. So we would really appreciate it.
And another thing that helps people find our podcast is simply you telling them about us. If you know somebody who you think might like the show, we would appreciate you giving us a mention. Word of mouth is one of the best ways in which the show grows.
Indeed.
So the next time you're trying to remember the most hip and happening couple on the planet, just remember Catherine and I are an inspiration. The information that you hear on this podcast is for informational purposes only. The hosts are not medical professionals. You should always consult with your doctor, nurse, or other certified health professional before beginning any diet or fitness program.